What happens when cinema breaks all boundaries and refuses to play by the rules? Imagine a decade when cameras turned their gaze toward the forbidden, when directors chased shock over safety, and the censors trembled at what they saw. These are the stories that defied governments, enraged critics, and thrilled underground audiences. Let us dive into 17 exploitation films from the 1960s that truly pushed the limits. Number 17, The Defilers. 1965. Few films captured the sleaze and nihilism of mid-60s underground cinema, quite like The Defilers. Shot in black and white on a shoestring budget, this American exploitation feature was released under the banner of legendary producer David Friedman, who specialized in drive-in provocations. It told the story of two wealthy young men who used their power to corrupt and destroy the lives of others in Los Angeles' seedy underbelly. What made The Defilers shocking was not its violence, but its moral vacuum. No heroes, no redemption, just raw cruelty that mirrored the darker instincts of a society losing faith in its own values. Censors tried to suppress it, claiming it glorified vice and moral decay. Yet the very same outrage drew curious audiences to midnight screenings. Behind the scenes, the film was rushed into production with a cast of unknowns and almost no permits. The director, Lee Frost, wanted to make a statement about class hypocrisy disguised as cheap entertainment. Critics called it trash, but underground viewers saw it as a mirror of 60s decadence. For decades, The Defilers vanished into obscurity, buried under bans and legal threats. But today, it survives on YouTube, a grim time capsule of an era when exploitation films dared to reveal the rot beneath American glamour. It remains disturbing not because of what it shows, but because of what it predicted. Number 16, Mondo Cane, 1962. Mondo Cane was not merely a documentary, it was a global shockwave. Directed by Gualtiero Jacopetti, this Italian creation birthed the Mondo genre itself. Films that promised to show the shocking reality of the world unfiltered and unashamed. Viewers expecting travelogue footage were instead confronted with scenes of bizarre rituals, cruelty to animals, and human behavior at its most primal. Audiences fainted. Critics denounced it as exploitation of misery. Governments in several countries, including the United States and the United Kingdom, demanded cuts or outright bans. Yet, it became an international hit, making millions and inspiring dozens of imitators. The film blurred the line between truth and manipulation, often staging moments to heighten the horror. Behind the curtain, Jacopetti faced lawsuits and death threats for allegedly faking some of the footage. But his defense was chilling. He argued that civilization itself was the hoax, not his camera. The controversy cemented Mondo Cane as one of the most infamous films of its time. Its legacy endures in modern reality, television, and shock documentaries. The term Mondo movie became shorthand for any film that traded moral boundaries for human fascination. What started as a grim curiosity became a cultural mirror, reflecting our endless appetite for spectacle and suffering. Number 15, Blood Feast, 1963. If there is a holy grail of gore, it is Blood Feast. Directed by Herschel Gordon Lewis and produced by David Friedman. This film proudly declared itself as the first splatter movie ever made. It told the story of a deranged caterer who harvested body parts for a sacrificial feast dedicated to an ancient goddess. At a time when mainstream Hollywood still avoided showing a drop of blood, Blood Feast went all in. Buckets of fake organs, crimson paint, and shrieking sound effects turned drive-in theaters into horror circuses. Critics called it revolting. Churches organized boycotts. Censors in several states tried to stop screenings, claiming it would corrupt youth. But the chaos only made it stronger. Lines wrapped around theater blocks as teenagers dared each other to endure it. Behind the scenes, Lewis knew exactly what he was doing. With no budget for stars, he sold shock instead. Every frame was designed to offend, and that became its marketing genius. Over time, Blood Feast transformed from banned oddity to cult classic. Its gore paved the way for filmmakers like George Romero and Sam Raimi. Today, it stands on YouTube as a relic of fearless cinema that refused to apologize. Its message still echoes through decades of horror history. Sometimes disgust is the purest form of rebellion. Number 14, Olga's House of Shame. 1964. When Olga's House of Shame hit the grindhouse circuit in the mid-60s, audiences did not know whether to be horrified or hypnotized. Directed by Joseph P. Maura, This film was part of the notorious Olga trilogy that pushed the boundaries of what could be shown on screen. It told the story of a cruel woman who ruled a crime empire and ran a hidden prison for those who dared defy her. The film had no major studio support and no Hollywood polish. Shot in stark black and white, it carried an eerie documentary tone that made the cruelty feel real. Critics labeled it immoral and indecent, while local authorities in multiple states banned it outright. Yet every time it was pulled from theaters, it reappeared under a new name to evade censorship. Behind the camera, Maura faced constant police pressure. Screening prints were confiscated in New York and Philadelphia. Actress Audrey Campbell, who played Olga, received hate mail, but also gained an underground following. The film's grainy aesthetic, its defiance of narrative convention, and its audacity made it a cult phenomenon among college audiences who whispered about its existence. By the time the Olga films disappeared from circulation, they had already inspired countless underground directors. Today, Olga's House of Shame lives on through digital restoration and free streaming. It stands as an early sign of how far independent cinema would go to explore forbidden human impulses. Beneath the grime and shock lay an unspoken rebellion against conformity and authority. Number 13. The Naked Kiss, 1964. When Samuel Fuller released The Naked Kiss, critics did not know what to make of it. Was it noir, melodrama, or exploitation? Perhaps all three. The story followed Kelly, a former call girl, trying to rebuild her life in a small town, only to uncover the horrifying corruption hiding beneath its wholesome surface. Fuller used shocking scenes to attack hypocrisy. His heroine opens the film by violently attacking a man before revealing her bald head beneath a wig, an image that stunned audiences. Censors demanded cuts, but Fuller refused. The result was a film both hated and admired. It exposed the seedy underside of American virtue at a time when Hollywood preferred clean illusions. The production was chaotic. Fuller shot it independently after being rejected by major studios. He cast unknown actress Constance Towers, who gave a fearless performance that critics initially dismissed as too raw. Yet, over the years, her portrayal became iconic. Fuller's blunt dialogue and confrontational storytelling gave the movie a pulpy energy no one else dared attempt. When The Naked Kiss resurfaced decades later, critics reevaluated it as a masterpiece of independent defiance. Its shocking moments no longer scandalize, but still disturb. Fuller's film reminds us that the 60s were not all flower power and peace signs. They were also an age of rage, frustration, and moral warfare. Today, it thrives online as a haunting reminder of one man's war against hypocrisy. Number 12. She-Devils on Wheels, 1968. No list of 60s exploitation cinema is complete without She-Devils on Wheels. Directed by Herschel Gordon Lewis, the same visionary behind Blood Feast, this biker film turned every genre trope on its head. Instead of leather-clad men dominating the road, it featured an all-female motorcycle gang known as the Man-Eaters. Their rules were simple: no mercy, no remorse, no men allowed. At drive-ins across America, stunned audiences gasped at the sight of women burning rubber, drinking hard, and doling out vengeance. Critics called it trashy and degrading. Censors tried to ban it for depicting rebellion and lawlessness. Yet Lewis had tapped into something real: the growing feminist fury of the late 60s, cloaked in exploitation-style bravado. Behind the scenes, the production was pure chaos. The cast was mostly composed of real Florida biker women who did their own stunts. Fights broke out on set. One actress reportedly broke her nose during filming and kept going. Lewis himself described the shoot as half movie, half riot. Though dismissed at release, She-Devils on Wheels became a cult favorite decades later, influencing everything from grindhouse homages to modern girl gang cinema. Its fearless spirit and unpolished authenticity gave voice to a generation tired of playing by rules. Today, it can be streamed on YouTube in all its gritty glory, a roaring time capsule of women who refuse to ride behind anyone ever again. Number 11. Faster, Pussycat Kill Kill, 1965. Few films embody the spirit of pure cinematic rebellion like Faster, Pussycat Kill Kill, directed by cult legend Russ Meyer. This high-octane black and white masterpiece followed three go-go dancers tearing through the California desert in fast cars and faster tempers. It was marketed as a sleazy exploitation flick, Yet beneath the surface, it was pure feminist fury, disguised as grindhouse pulp. Audiences in 1965 were not ready for what Meyer unleashed. Critics called it immoral, violent, and absurd. Censors wanted it banned for glorifying female aggression. The characters were not victims, but predators, roaring engines as symbols of power, not submission. That inversion alone terrified traditionalists. Behind the scenes, Meyer ran his set like a boot camp. Star Tura Satana performed nearly all her own stunts, including brutal hand-to-hand fights and high-speed chases in 100-degree desert heat. She had been a burlesque performer before the film and poured her real-life toughness into every frame. When it premiered, mainstream audiences recoiled, but the underground world embraced it instantly. In time, Faster Pussycat Kill. Kill became a blueprint for generations of rebels from punk bands to Quentin Tarantino. The movie's daring mix of violence and female dominance still feels ahead of its time. What began as a cheap drive in curiosity became a defiant anthem for power, freedom, and chaos. Today, it roars again freely online, demanding to be witnessed, not judged. Number 10. The Girl on a Motorcycle, 1968. When The Girl on a Motorcycle premiered, it stunned Europe and scandalized censors across the Atlantic. Directed by Jack Cardiff and starring Marianne Faithfull and Alain Delon, it told the story of a restless young wife who leaves her husband and rides across France to visit her lover dressed entirely in black leather. The movie was a visual fever dream, filled with psychedelic montages and haunting narration. Critics were divided. Some called it art, others called it moral decay. Faithfull's performance radiated a strange vulnerability hidden behind steel. For censors, the idea of a woman seeking liberation on her own terms was too dangerous. Cuts were demanded in several countries, yet underground audiences adored it for its freedom. Production was turbulent. Cardiff battled with producers over its tone, unsure if it was a feminist statement or a surreal fantasy. The press mocked Faithfull's accent and wardrobe, while tabloids sensationalized every frame. Yet, behind the mockery was a story of loneliness and obsession told through colors and speed. Over the years, The Girl on a Motorcycle evolved from scandal to cult art film. Its bold use of subjective camera work and its dreamlike editing influenced filmmakers throughout the 70s. Today, it exists online as a hypnotic artifact of 60s rebellion, a story of love, freedom, and destruction, written in chrome and gasoline. It dares viewers to ask how far they would go for escape. Number 9. The Trip, 1967. Roger Corman's. The Trip was the first mainstream American film to dive headfirst into the world of LSD hallucination and counterculture consciousness. Written by Jack Nicholson. Before his rise to fame, it followed a commercial director who ingests acid for the first time and journeys through visions of death, desire, and cosmic rebirth. When it hit theaters, the controversy was immediate. Authorities accused it of promoting drug use. The British Board of Film Censors banned it outright. In the United States, it was heavily edited to remove imagery the studios considered too dangerous for youth audiences. Yet, even censored, the movie pulsed with psychedelic power that audiences had never seen before. Production was as wild as the story. Corman encouraged actors Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper to improvise their performances using actual footage shot during trippy light shows in Los Angeles. Rumors spread that the cast experimented with LSD during filming, though Corman later denied it. The editing room became a kaleidoscope of shifting colors and flashing lights, a visual embodiment of inner chaos. Despite its bans, The Trip became a midnight sensation and paved the way for Easy Rider 2 years later. It turned rebellion into philosophy and gave the 60s counterculture its cinematic mirror. Today, it stands on YouTube as a relic of fearless experimentation, reminding viewers that sometimes losing control is the only way to see truth. Number 8. Vixen, 1968. When Vixen premiered in the late 60s, it did more than just shock audiences. It revolutionized independent film. Directed by Russ Meyer, it was marketed as a low-budget curiosity, but quickly exploded into a cultural event that challenged both Hollywood conservatism and government censors. The film followed Vixen Palmer, a young woman living in the Canadian wilderness, whose wild manipulations and moral contradictions reflected the chaos of her generation. The movie was made for barely $70,000 and grossed millions. Audiences lined up around blocks, despite protests outside theaters. Critics labeled it indecent, and several states tried to ban it under obscenity laws. What terrified them most was not the story's sensationalism, but its subversive humor and fearless portrayal of female power. Meyer called it a social satire, wrapped in grindhouse packaging. Behind the scenes, Vixen was shot in less than 2 weeks with a small crew and improvised dialogue. Meyer's unapologetic direction and sharp editing gave it energy few studio pictures could match. Actress Erica Gavin was a discovery, confident, unpredictable, and unforgettable. Government censors raided screenings in Ohio and Boston, but every raid only amplified the film's fame. In time, Vixen became the first exploitation film to cross over into mainstream discussion. It pushed the MPAA toward creating the X rating and helped redefine freedom of expression in American cinema. Today, it survives online as a cheeky, bold time capsule of 60s rebellion. Beneath its outrageous surface lies a cultural turning point where shock became a tool of liberation and laughter became defiance. Number 7. The Sadist. 1963. The Sadist stands as one of the most unsettling exploitation thrillers of its decade. Directed by James Landis and starring Arch Hall Jr., this film turned a minimal budget and single location into a suffocating nightmare. Inspired by the true crimes of Charles Starkweather, it follows a group of teachers stranded in a desert junkyard who fall prey to a grinning killer and his accomplice. Upon release, critics dismissed it as trash, but audiences who saw it never forgot it. Its violence was stark, unrelenting, and shot with a realism that shocked early 60s viewers. Many theaters refused to show it, fearing backlash. The brutality felt disturbingly real decades before the term slasher existed. The production was grueling. Filmed under the scorching California sun, Landis had no permits and little money. He used handheld cameras to heighten the panic. Arch Hall Jr., known for teen musicals before this role, transformed into something terrifying. A smirking portrait of youth gone psychotic. Police officers even visited the set, thinking the gunfire was real. Over time, The Sadist gained recognition as a forgotten classic of raw tension. Its influence can be felt in films like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Natural Born Killers. Today, it streams freely online, still gripping viewers with its claustrophobic terror. What began as cheap exploitation became prophetic art, showing that real horror hides not in monsters, but in ordinary people. Number 6. Branded to Kill. 1967. Few films burned brighter and stranger than Seijun Suzuki's Branded to Kill. In post-war Japan, this was the movie that shattered the boundaries of the Yakuza genre. It followed Goro Hanada, the number 3 hitman in the Tokyo underworld, whose obsession with the smell of boiling rice spirals into surreal violence and betrayal. When Nikatsu Studios saw Suzuki's final cut, they were horrified. His avant-garde editing, fractured dialogue, and dreamlike imagery made executives furious. They fired him on the spot and banned him from working for a decade. Yet what they saw as madness was genius. Branded to Kill was modern art, disguised as crime cinema. Critics called it incomprehensible, but young filmmakers worshipped it. The film's visual style, sharp shadows, and abstract framing later influenced Quentin Tarantino, Wong Kar-wai, and Jim Jarmusch. It became a cornerstone of counterculture filmmaking, proving that rebellion could be both violent and poetic. Suzuki's career nearly ended because of this film, but history